But also, there's another issue here too, right? And Peter Malinauskas, I'll never forget, Peter Malinauskas, People's Forum, week before the South Australian election, okay? Now, he could have fallen into the elbow trap, which he did before the 22 election, which was to say, I promised to bring prices down, I'm going to, every single item is going to come down. He said, look, government's not involved in everything, we're not responsible for everything, so I'm not going to promise something that can't be delivered. Freya, how politically toxic do you think is the Prime Minister's promises in 22 that failed to deliver? The expectation, that slide that I show every couple of nights, right? Cost of living will be better under a Labor government, but on every single indices, and I'm just looking at what Matt was talking about before, as always, he's 100% right on alcoholic, non-alcoholic beverages, bed, cereal, meat, dairy, fruit, and you name it, it's all correct, right? About up, let alone everything else we've talked about. We talk about it, we're aware of it, but how potent do you think it is in the general community that they were promised something better, or is that just something that those of us that follow the detail are aware of?
Well, I hope it's not. And I think we do. Well, it's hard to tell because we live in this politics bubble, and anyone watching this program right now.
We count the grains of sand on the beach. Other people just drive past the beach.
Exactly. But I do think that Albo has completely lost all credibility on energy policy. Before the federal election, he promised that your household power bills would go down by $275. He promised that, and Matt can fact check me on this, but I think it was on 92 occasions 100%. He repeated that. I don't think people will have forgotten. And so I'm active on TikTok, and I'll post stuff about cost of living.
China's surveillance app, but I understand.
I know, but look, that's where Gen Z is, so that's where we have to be as well. And the stuff I post...
I just say that to annoy my mate Trev, who loves it.
It's pretty addictive. The content I post about cost of living resonates so strongly. It always does well in the algorithm. People engage with it, they comment. And so I think people are waking up. The question is whether they remember the promises that were made before the last election. But that's why people like you are so important, Paul, to hold them accountable.
Come back every night. All right, and I'll take you to the Southport Sharks for a buffet dinner when we're up on the goal. I'm just going to list all my favourite joints. I'm serious. Every time I go, a couple of times a year, there's about 6 places over and over and over again. All right. Now, just a last one on all of this, Matt, right, which is, let's also talk about what else is out in the market, right? The Greens, literally, in the Victorian Parliament are saying, price controls. We're going to literally walk around Kamala Harris style and say what something can be sold for. When you're coming up against that sort of populism from the left, is there a chance that what Freya's talking about here, about people who are absolutely peed off about how high everything is, they don't care what the reason is, they'll just go to where they think a solution is? And how realistic is it that they go to the Greens, who are just promising by the sheer hand of government they can bash down the cost of bread?
Yeah, look, I think that is a real threat, Paul. It's a real threat, probably more so if we leave a vacuum and not come up with other solutions for people's problems. They want solutions and they'll be desperate for anything. You can tell the Greens right now, they've basically dropped climate change as a political issue. You hardly ever hear them talk about it outside of Canberra. On the ground, I know, in the streets around Brisbane and where they're trying to win seats, they've only really got one policy, and that's rent control. Now, rent control is a policy that's failed everywhere it has been tried in the world, but it won't stop, as you say, desperate people, understandably, trying to cling on to something like that. That's why I think it's very important that we do take a full set of policies to the election, that we don't shrink on our values, we don't shy away from our principles, because if we're offering a proper and coherent set of responses to people, it's more likely to be the antidote to those cheap and lazy solutions like rent control. So, I think we should take on the whole kit and caboodle, get rid of this net zero rubbish, all these climate targets. The only target we should have going for election for the Australian people is a cost of living target. It should be our number one and only focus in everything we're doing, controlling our borders, promoting housing ownership, getting our energy system fixed, are all focused on that cost of living target, not meeting an international climate change target, which no one in the world is taking seriously anyway.